All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening or watching, however you consume the show. I do appreciate you very, very much. Today's episode is sponsored by Sunny Reds, 1531 Aber Road, minutes away from Highmark Stadium. Some of the best food, drink specials, vibes that you're going to get anywhere in Western New York. Home of, by the way, the Wednesday night wing special, 50-cent wings. I'm telling you right now, you are not going to get a better deal anywhere in this area on wings. So make sure you stop up to Sunny Reds. All right, this is our Friday episode. I am joined right now for the first time. It's been a minute, man, hot minute. My man, PK from the Buffalo Sports Collective. We had a little bit of technical difficulties our first time around, so this is actually take two for PK and I. Fortunately, we're recording this, and it wasn't live for the world to see things fall apart, man. How you doing, buddy? Thank you very much, as always, for joining the program, as usual, on short notice as well. Good to have you on, man. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Yeah, we've had technical difficulties on our side. Thank God it's only been, I think we're going to be on episode 331, I think is going to come out as you're listening to this today. We've had technical issues twice. Once we lost all of Phil's audio and we put it out where it was just PK was talking to himself because we needed something. The second one was about a month or two ago. My whole screen just died. And you could hear me, but there was no video. So thank God it's only been 2 out of 330 some odd episodes. But yeah, it's never fun because especially in post, you gotta try to fix something. But yeah, this was only 3 minutes in. So thank God that was in the beginning.
The weird part is, fortunately, and I shouldn't say this because I'm probably jinxing myself, but most of the time, if there's an issue, it's usually at the beginning. So you'd be like, you know what, we're only a couple of minutes in. Let's just redo it, as opposed to when you're halfway through. This is episode 982 of Talking Buffalo. I've had it more than twice, not that many times though, but you know what? It comes with a downside. Like, the good part is I can have somebody like yourself, whether you're, somewhere else in Western New York or in another state, even another country, pretty much anywhere from around the world, you can connect with anybody. That's the beauty of being able to record in today's day and age. The downside is you're almost entirely, relying on the internet, and in some cases, whatever app, whatever program that you're using to record. But hopefully we got this straightened out and it won't be an issue going forward. So here's what I want to do today. And by the way, it's been a minute since I've had you on. Not that long, but it's been a minute. And the last time I had you on, the episode quite literally was called, "Oh My God, I Hate the Buffalo Sabres." A spoiler for you, for everyone out there who's listening, that has not changed. We will spend some time later on talking about the Buffalo Sabres. I actually put a clip up on social media on Thursday. I had a rant about the Sabres. I did a pod bag, and what a pod bag is on my show, PK, is fans submit questions, comments, takes. I read some of them off and respond. Somebody asked me, why is my hatred for the Sabres so out of control lately? And that prompted a 7-minute and 35-minute nonstop rant, solo rant from me on the Sabres. I want to get some of your thoughts on that. So we're going to talk some Sabres. Obviously going to talk some Buffalo Bills as well. I want to get your thoughts on the season as a whole, like your recollections of it, like when you look back at the season, how you will remember the season. We'll get into at least a little bit anyway, what your vision may be for the Buffalo Bills this offseason and some things that they may do. So we'll talk about all that stuff today. And also the Buffalo Bandits, Buffalo Sports Collective, you guys are great amongst a lot of things, but especially covering the Bandits. They are literally undefeated right now. They're the only undefeated team in the league. I did about 5 minutes worth of homework on that. I saw that they're 6-0. So I'm going to get some of your thoughts on them as well. I want to start, though, actually with the Super Bowl on Sunday, okay? And let me ask you a question right off the bat. Kind of leading into something I'm seeing a lot of this past week amongst friends, family even, and especially on social media. Are you watching the game on Sunday? As of right now, we're recording this Thursday late afternoon. Are you watching this football game on Sunday? Or are you one of many that are saying that you're going to boycott the game? What are you doing? What are your plans right now?
My plans currently are sit at home doing nothing. I don't remember the last time we had a Super Bowl party. I think it was Super Bowl 50, maybe. I think it was
Mhm.
the last time there was actually a Super Bowl party involving me. But yeah, I'll be watching.
Okay.
I am not all that interested in it, but it's the Super Bowl. It's the last time you're going to see meaningful NFL action until September. I mean, everybody boycotting it, I can understand it, but I'm
I
wondering
don't.
how many of those people are actually going to boycott it, or are they going to feel a little bit of FOMO and tune into at least the halftime and then see what it is. They might scroll through Twitter and say, "Hey, maybe it's actually a good game," and then pop it on. I'm very interested to see what percentage of people claiming they're going to boycott actually do it.
You are taking the words right out of my mouth, my friend. 100% agree with you there. I was waiting to see if you were going to tell me you're going to boycott it because I was going to be like, in all due respect, PK, I think you're a little bit full of shit if you're saying that. Okay. Yes, I'm with you here. For starters, I think most people who are saying that right now either are lying or they might feel like that in the moment. But when it comes to be game time, they're going to put it on. I don't mean they might be hate watching. They might be annoyed. I'm talking about Bills fans mainly, by the way, obviously, but you're going to watch it, even if you're hate watching. It's like me watching the Sabres. I hate the Sabres, but I hate watching them at this point. People are going to be like that. Now, for the people out there who actually do intend on boycotting, I say this with the utmost of respect, at least to some people. I know some good friends of mine, some people like on social media as well. Some people, I don't want to say media, but in the content sort of business that I have the utmost amount of respect for. Okay. I like them as very, very much. They're boycotting the game. And my take on it is that that's whack. That is boycotting this game is whack. Like, why are you boycotting this game? Like, I guess that's a question I want to ask. Do you think people are boycotting this game because they're angry that, the big bad Chiefs won again? The Bills could get over the hump. That frustrates them. So they're like, all right, well, I'm done with football. I can maybe understand it to the slightest degree. But I also think there's a camp out there that's boycotting the game because they actually still think that the game was rigged, that the officials cheated for the Kansas City Chiefs, and they're not going to support the league. They don't want to watch a game that's rigged. You know what I
You know,
mean? You feel like there's a fair amount of people out there who still, several days later, are feeling that kind of way. Don't you agree with that?
you don't subscribe to that? No.
No, not really.
No, I agree. I think that there's a healthy combination of chief hatred and people claiming and still really believing that the NFL is somehow rigged to let the Chiefs win. And it's just I don't get it. Like if you truly do hate the Chiefs, why wouldn't you watch it to hate watch the Chiefs and really root on Philly to kind of stop the three-peat from going, like with Pat Riley having the trademarks to three-peat
Yeah,
and the NFL having to go through that whole thing, even though Pat Riley has never three-peated. Wouldn't it be funny for the NFL to go through that whole thing and then the Chiefs don't three-peat? Like
right.
I never understood the boycotting aspect of it. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to be missing out on it for content creators or people that do this for a living that claim they're going to boycott it. Where are you going to get your material? Are you just going to like go on Twitter and just read what other people are doing?
Some people do that all the time, man.
Yeah, it's just I that is true. And it's just a weird hill to die on that I don't understand.
Look, for one thing you said was even if you're going to hate watch the Chiefs and root for Philly, that I think that's part of the problem is everybody hates Philly as well. I hate the
I have no
Philadelphia
problem.
Eagles. I
Yeah.
don't hate the Eagles so much as a team. I hate their fan base. I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
Philly is the biggest scumbag fan base in the
You see the guy
NFL, and I
shoot
don't
the
care if
gun
this
up
gets
in the
around.
air?
Yeah, there's. I mean, you see every game. You see clips of guys or women, believe it or not, who wear, the other team's logos and colors. They get jumped or get
Yep.
spit on, get shit thrown at them, get the nastiest insults. And that's not to say it doesn't happen in other stadiums as well. I mean, look, Bills Mafia is awesome, but there's some bad apples that go to these games and a lot of bullshit and a lot of terrible things happen as well. But just Philly's known for that. I mean, they do it more than anyone else. So it's not even like you know, you could hate Kansas City, but a lot of people also hate Philly. It's the less you said it, though. It's the less football game of the year. You are a football fan. You watch the whole season. The Bills, I'm sure Bills fans watch other games beyond just the Buffalo Bills. At least most people do as well. So this is the last game you're going to see that matters all the way until the second week of September, man. So you got that. You do have, you might hate them, but you got two really good teams playing against each other. Now, second time in 3 years, a little bit of fatigue. There are a lot of Chiefs fatigue. I get that. But you got the commercials. There's always a couple memorable commercials, depending on what you're looking for. People like music. Yeah, Kendrick Lamar at halftime. Who knows what the hell he's going to do out there? Is he going to have his Drake diss song? Is he going to perform that? That's, something to watch for. And again, just being the final game for 7 months, I don't understand it. And I am trying to. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of saying, I am so demoralized. Like, forget about this podcast. Pretend I didn't have this podcast. Pretend you didn't have Buffalo Sports Collective. Pretend content meant nothing to you. And you're just a fan, just an everyday fan, like most people who are listening to the show. Maybe if the game was like 2 or 3 days later, I could see myself saying, you know what, I can't do it. I can't watch it. But you're talking 14 days ago. Like the Bills, by the time this game kicks off, it's going to have been 14 days to not watch it. The Super Bowl, the pinnacle of the whole entire season. I don't know, Boone. I don't get it. It makes no sense. And I know a lot of, like I said, people that I very much respect that are planning on doing this. I can't get with it. I just don't get it. Makes no sense.
For a lot of times, especially, covering these different teams, I try to put myself in a different perspective to see, am I just doing this based on me covering the team? That if I'm looking too much in depth at it, am I looking at it too much of a fan rather than, a person covering the team? So I try to see other sides of people's viewpoints. This is one that I can't get behind, and I can't understand how you could watch football, especially the people that are dedicated to watching football, invest all that amount of time. It's like watching a really, really good series of a movie and then just right before the final movie, just refusing to watch it. You're missing the conclusion of a whole season.
If you're a fan, okay, as a fan, not as an analyst, not as a content creator who talks about sports, but as a fan, can't you isn't there a school of thought that you may as well have the Chiefs win? Like, if you're going to lose, like just in all sports, I remember growing up and saying, we would lose, in the playoffs in Little League or whatever. I'm like, I hope this team wins it all. Because at least I can say, we lost to the team that won it all. The Chiefs win. They'll be the first team to ever three-peat. And that could be considered by many, maybe they're at least certainly on their way to having the greatest run ever. And the Bills are a great team. And you just got caught wrong place, wrong time, the wrong era of football for Josh Allen to be what he is. There's a part of me, what I'm basically telling you, in part because I hate the Philly fan base and I hate fan bases. Bills Mafia deserves a Super Bowl. Okay. They do. I 100% agree with that. Philly fans don't deserve shit. So I don't know that I want them to win. And I might be in the minority, PK. I'm annoyed by the Chiefs. I'm sick of the Chiefs. I hate losing to the Chiefs, but I don't think that I hate the Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe I'm in the minority by saying that. I respect them. It's almost like I'm a Yankees fan. It was almost like the Yankees-Red Sox rivalry. I really grew to respect the Red Sox during the 90s and early 2000s, the rivalry that those teams had. I mean, I respect the Chiefs a lot. I don't even know that I hate them at this point.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You kind of have to appreciate the greatness that is going on over there, that you have to, like I said, remove yourself from being a diehard Buffalo Bills fan and just realize that you're 50 years from now, you're going to realize, okay, I was watching this and I was around watching this three-peat that might never happen again. Like if they do pull this off, there's a possibility that they're the only team that ever does this in the rest of our lifetime. Like you have to appreciate that. For me, I would more be cheering on Philly based on Saquon Barkley. I think he's a good dude. I think it would be a good storyline. Him getting out of New York, going to Philly and instantly winning a Super Bowl. He's up for the MVP, which I don't think he's going to win. And I think that comes out when everybody's listening anyways. But I like Jalen Hurts. I like AJ Brown. Like they have, if you take out the fan base, I like a lot of the players on Philly. And, I wouldn't mind seeing some of them. I hate their head coach, but I wouldn't mind seeing a couple of those guys raise the Lombardi Trophy.
I'm not even so much annoyed about watching this game on Sunday as I am annoyed about the prospects that the Bills play the Chiefs again in Buffalo next year. And the week leading up to it, it's like, how can that game mean anything? Hey, the Bills win. Okay, what's it going to be 5 straight times you beat them in the regular season? It's just the thought of emotionally investing in that next season already has me annoyed. And it's only February and the schedule. We don't even know when they're playing the Chiefs next year. We just know it's going to be in Orchard Park. That's the shit that really annoys me. But yeah, man, I can't get with it, man. I can't get not watching a football game. You're a fan of the sport. You watched it all season long, finish it off. And like you said, I also think 90% of these people are either lying or they just don't know that they're going to watch it yet. It's like saying, yeah, I'm not going to go out. It's somebody's birthday party, a big party. You're like, yeah, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. Day that party comes, you want to go. And I just think that's how it's going to play out. As for the game itself, before we get into some Bills talk, just spend a minute talking about the game itself. Like, what are your thoughts on the game? Not necessarily, who you want to win, but just how you see it playing out right now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what Kansas City's offense can do against this Philly defense. I mean, Philly's defense struggled early on, and then those rookie cornerbacks turned it on. Their defensive line might be the best in football.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be, can Philly's offense do much if they are able to shut down Saquon Barkley? If they can shut down Saquon Barkley, or at least limit him to doing not even close to what he's been doing all season, which is probably going to be very tough even with Kansas City. But I think this could go either two ways. It could go and be a really, really solid football game that you're watching right up to the end and it goes down to the very wire. Or I could see this being, what was it, the Los Angeles Rams versus Patriots game years ago, where it was just a snooze fest nonstop. It could go one or two ways. And I'm sitting here Thursday at like 4 p.m. I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I'm rooting for the first one, but I'm kind of expecting it to be a snooze fest.
My feeling on the game is this, and I don't think this is a unique take, so I want to admit that, okay? But I see it happening one of two ways. I think Philadelphia could blow them out. I could see that happening. I could see a 2-score Philadelphia victory because I do think from 1-53, I think Philadelphia is, without question, the better football team.
Agreed.
They have the better roster. I felt the same way about the Buffalo Bills 2 weeks ago. And there's lots of teams, or a handful of teams, at least in the league, where people have said that all season long. The Ravens have a better team than the Chiefs. Now we're saying it about Philly. I do think they're the better team. I can see them winning because their talent is superior. However, a tight game, a 1-score game, I can't pick against Kansas City. They just don't lose those kinds of games. They just don't lose them. You mentioned Saquon Barkley, and one stat that fascinated me about this game, that has nothing to do with the Bills, but just a Kansas City stat that fascinated me. I didn't know it until I saw this on Twitter. The Chiefs have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in the playoffs in 18 straight playoff games. That is like an eternity. 18 straight playoff games. Nobody has run for 100 yards. Damn well Saquon Barkley is going to get the opportunities to run for 100 yards. He's not going to play 45% of the snaps like James Cook did against the Bills in the AFC Championship. I can promise you that much right now. He ain't coming off the field in obvious passing downs like James Cook does for Ty Johnson. That's going to be huge right there. Does Saquon Barkley get to 100 yards? 100 or 18 straight games, that hasn't happened. I'm going to pick Philly, though. I'll tell you that right now. I got Philly winning this, and I got a weird score, too. Maybe it's because I got fucked up squares in a pool. But Philadelphia 13, Kansas City 19. I'm sorry, Philadelphia 32, Kansas City 19. So 2-9. Weird-ass square numbers. That's going to win me a lot of money, maybe. I'll tell you what they know. One last thing, and then we'll get some Bills stuff here, too. There's one thing about this game that could be intriguing that I really hope doesn't happen. And this is talking as a Bills content creator, a Bills fan, that I really hope does not happen. Okay? If Philly wins, great. If Kansas City wins, fine. Whatever. Okay? Here's what I hope does not happen in this football game, because it will carry on with you and I and everyone who talks about the Bills for the next goddamn 10 months, okay? And it's this. Please, please, please don't let Xavier Worthy have a huge game for the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's all I ask. Again, Philly can win the game. Kansas City can win the game. We'll all move on. Next week, we'll be talking about who the Bills may cut, we'll be talking about. All kinds of stuff like that. Bills offseason stuff. Keon Coleman, we could talk about him going into year 2. He's got to improve. We could talk about Brandon Beane. I don't say calling him out, but certainly mentioning that he was not the same player after the injury this year. I want to focus on that stuff. I do not want to focus on Xavier Worthy having 5 catches for $115 and a jet sweep touchdown run, a big game in the Super Bowl, and all everyone's talking about is how after just 1 year, the Bills got smoked. They got fleeced on that trade because damn well if Xavier Worthy plays a significant role in a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl win, all we're going to hear about as it pertains to the Buffalo Bills, right?
Yeah, I'm going to hear it on my podcast too, because Phil will be relentless. He's already relentless because he wanted Buffalo, even before the draft, to make the move to go up and get Brian Thomas Jr. And it didn't happen. And you see what Brian Thomas Jr. is. And I don't even know if Bills could have moved up those 2 spots, but they decided to trade down, and then you see what he's doing. But yeah, after the first game of the season, Worthy had those 2 touchdowns, which, whatever. The talk was nonstop. If he does that in the Super Bowl, I might go into hibernation until next September and just skip the whole offseason and not have to worry about that stuff. Just come on here to talk Bandits. And please let Worthy get shut out or something, because he seems like he's going to be a good player. Not great. I still question how he's going to end up being in the NFL that small. But if he has anywhere remote, if he plays any type of factor in the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl, it's going to be hell from February until September, and I'm not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, look, trades are not won and they're not lost in one season 95% of the time. But if Worthy plays,
don't tell that the normal fan, though. Do not tell that to the normal fan.
If Worthy has a significant role in the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl win, that talk is going to be hell. Anytime Keon Coleman comes up, you may as well say Xavier Worthy in the same sentence, because that's exactly what's going to happen. I will say this. As a Bills fan, if you're a longtime Bills fan and you have a lifetime of hatred or jealousy, whatever you want to call it, towards Tom Brady, this potentially could be a silver lining for Bills fans. This could be a bad week for Tom Brady starting right now. And I'll tell you why. Number one, we're recording this before, so it will come out by the time people listen. But Eli Manning probably gets selected for the Hall of Fame. That happens on Thursday night during NFL honors. So Eli Manning, of course, the guy who beat Tom Brady twice in a Super Bowl. So, I mean, you take that away, and Tom Brady, there's no GOAT discussion coming for a long, long, long time. But anyway, so his nemesis, his kryptonite, might end up going in the Hall of Fame tonight. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they go on and win. I think there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to say Patrick Mahomes is now the GOAT. He's going to have GOAT status for sure with another Chiefs win. That would be the first ever to three-peat. Was it 4 Super Bowls in 5 years? Some shit like that.
Yeah,
That'll be his 4th Super Bowl already. Yeah, and then he'll have lost one. There's going to be a lot of people out there where they put Pat Mahomes at that point over Tom Brady. So that could happen. And plus, he's calling the game. So if you're a Bills fan and you want to rip on Tom Brady, he's probably going to do a shitty job. Although I personally don't think he's going to. I think he's been all right. I think he's gotten better. First Super Bowl, though. So he might do a shitty job on the broadcast. So his nemesis might go in the Hall of Fame. He might get passed on the GOAT list, and he might do a shitty job broadcasting the game. So there you go. A little bit of hope, for a little silver lining, I should say, for Bills fans. Still not enough to make them boycott, though, huh?
On top of that, though, being co-owner, part owner of the Raiders, he couldn't get anybody to want that job either. He was getting turned down by how many people? So add that to the list of bad offseason times for Tom Brady.
Yeah, for sure. And look, last thing too, if you're boycotting and thinking you're sending a message to the league, they don't give a shit. You know how many millions of people are still going to watch that game because a handful of thousands. And look, they're literally having events. Like I've seen a couple bars that are having a no Super Bowl event. Like come to our bar, have a party. We're not watching the Super Bowl. But the league don't give a shit. I promise you that. They don't care. They're still going to probably shatter all kinds of records. Before we take a break, I want to transition to the Bills right now. We usually go over a couple things for the show, but this actually just happened today being Thursday. A little bit of news, not big news per se, but there was a report. Former Jaguars and Falcons defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen is expected to join the Bills staff as a senior defensive assistant. So he's been a defensive coordinator the last 3 weeks or last 3 seasons. It's like, all right, well, whatever. Defensive assistant. Joe Marino, my guy from Locked On Bills, had a tweet, and I want to read you this tweet because I thought this was interesting. He says this: Nielsen has been a DC in each of the last 3 seasons. Jaguars at 2024 were second in the NFL in man coverage rate. Falcons in 2023 were 11th, and the Saints in 2022 were 8th. By the way, that's 3 teams, defensive coordinator for 3 years. I don't love that. But anyway, 2nd, 11th, and 8th, the last 3 years in man-to-man coverage rate. He says the Bills had a notable uptick in man coverage in the playoffs, 41.5% versus Baltimore and Kansas City. That was the naked eye could even see how much more they were playing man coverage, PK. Then the last thing he says is incoming shift in Buffalo's defense. It looks like, with this move, the Bills and what we saw in the playoffs, the Bills may be transitioning more to a man-to-man defense. And we'll kind of set up for what we'll talk about more after the break. But quickly from you, you're going to play more man for man. Isn't your mindset, besides having a good corner, your pass rush better be better because you're playing man to man? That means, you could get beat a lot quicker in man to man than you're doing zone. That is interesting, isn't it? The pass rush, adding another guy to the defensive staff like that, and the uptick in a man for man coverage for the Bills. Do you find that interesting?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting what they do in the offseason now because, Douglas is going to be a free agent. You got Hamlin as a free agent. We saw a big turnover last year. What's the defense going to look like coming into this season if they really are going to go more man-to-man coverage? Like you said, the defensive line is going to have to get to the quarterback a lot quicker and excel a lot more than they have, especially in the playoffs. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see who comes back in this type of system if they are going to be switching more to man and who's going to be left off the block. It's going to be very interesting. It's a new added wrinkle that we kind of weren't expecting going into free agency that you're going to have to account for now.
All right, I am back here with PK from the Buffalo Sports Collected, headed towards my weekly live where I tell my guests it's going to be a quick episode, not going to be long at all. And then it ends up being right around that hour mark. What else is new? All right, so we're talking about, we started getting some Bills before the break here. Before we even talk about the offseason, just take a minute. I want you to reflect for a bit. Like, what are a couple, when you look back at this Buffalo Bills 2024 season, and yes, it does suck. And we spent time talking about a Super Bowl that the Bills are not going to be playing in, that it was right there. You could taste it. It was, right in the tip of your tongue. And that is hard to digest. It is hard to stomach. Okay. If you're a Bills fan, that's a tough one. It's a tough pill to swallow. But anyway, when you get past that and you look as this on a whole for this season, like what are a couple of things that really stood out for you this season specifically?
Well, I think the number one is just how big of a factor James Cook is in this offense. And going into the season, we knew, okay, you can be a very solid piece, but he went from a solid piece to a very integral role on this offense. Like this offense does not look the way it does if James Cook's not a part of it. I think the second one is this everybody eats mentality going in. You were questioning, okay, how are they going to factor without a number one ace? Like you don't have Gabe Davis, who, for what he was, you didn't really replace that type of production in the offseason. So it went from, okay, this is probably going to be, even Brandon Beane said it's going to be a retool year. So you went in, and I even predicted they were going to win the division. I still fully believe that as long as you got Josh Allen, I'm picking them to win the division every single year, regardless what the rest of the teams look like. But I thought they might be a one and done in the playoffs. And then I think it was even on your show, you were like, okay, do you move the goalpost because of how well they're excelling in this? And I was like, yeah, at some point you have to drop all your preconceived notions of what this team is going to look like and base it on what you're seeing. So I think the offense performed way better than I thought they were going to, coming in with so many question marks. And I think a lot of it has to do with Josh Allen not going to that superhero mode nonstop and being able to be okay with having a phenomenal run game and letting other players like James Cook just excel on that offense, and not saying, hey, it has to be me, I have to go hero mode, and just relinquishing some of his superpowers to his running back behind him.
you're when you say you're everyone eats your comment, it resonates with me so much because it takes me back to the summertime and hearing it. And honestly, at the time, I'm not gonna lie, I'm like, that is a cop out. It sounds like
Yep.
they're full of shit and they just don't have anybody that they can trust. They don't have anybody that they consistently think is gonna be any good. That was my mindset at the time because I remember I live in West Seneca, bro, and I remember getting in my car and taking that hour and 20-minute drive or whatever it was to training camp 5 different times, going to practice and looking at what they had catching the ball. And I'm like, what is this? Well, actually, Chase Claypool was pretty much getting hurt and done by that point, but Chase Claypool and
MVS.
MVS and MVS and Tyrell Shavers was having the summer of his life, and he's going to be a factor. And all these guys, Andy Isabella was still very much in the mix at the time.
KJ
Matt
Hamler
Collins,
was a part of it. Yeah.
KJ Hamler, Matt Collins, a special teams guy who just give him a chance. He's going to be good in Buffalo. I'm like, and my mindset was like, come on, man, this team's just not good. And if they are going to be good, Dalton Kincaid is going to have maybe the best second season, campaign that any tight end has ever had. That's how the Bills passing game is going to be good. Khalil Shakir, he's going to have 1,300, 1,400 yards. He's going to be the NFL breakout star, not just for the Bills, but for the entire NFL. I'm like, if that happens, the Bills pass a game, they'll be all right. But neither of that happened. Khalil Shakir had a very solid year. Dalton Kincaid, not so much. We already know the story about that. But yeah, the whole everybody eats mantra was true. And it from that perspective, Joe Brady and especially Sean McDermott, they couldn't have scripted that any better. So that definitely stands out to me. And also, other than Von Miller, who probably is not going to be back, but I'm not going to write him off quite yet, even though I'm close to doing that. It doesn't feel like anyone on this team right now. It's the end of the road and pretty much nobody on this team, at least nobody of serious relevance. Like they might lose, and I use lose loosely. Like DeMar Hamlin might leave in free agency. And there might be a couple other guys who go. Those guys, it's not that they're bad, but they're interchangeable rather easily to me. You go back to last year, and maybe we had this conversation a year ago. You didn't realize it at the time, but that was the last go raw for a lot of those guys, man. For Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde and Mitch Morse and Trey White, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis leaves and gets paid in free agency. That was the last go with that era. It felt like of Bills football. This was the reset year where things weren't supposed to culminate in the Bills being in the AFC Championship game, Yet here we are. So that really surprises me. And you look at this roster and the core, it's not old. There's still a lot of young ascending players, and Josh Allen made it through another season. He sure as hell took a lot of hits, but he didn't miss any time, So I think that would resonate with me the most. It's just the fact that so many guys a year ago were going into their last season, and it felt like that was the end for this rendition, this era of Bills football, and it wasn't at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all said that the old regime is leaving. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for this new regime and these younger players to step up and take the reins and be the new face of the franchise. And I think you're kind of seeing that a little bit more and more. And James Cook's taken that mantle, and Josh Allen took his leadership to another role. You got Terrell Bernard leading the defense even more back there in his second full season. And that one's still shocking because 2 off seasons ago, we're going like, Terrell Bernard, who is this guy? He's hurt all preseason, then he just takes it and runs with it. But yeah, it's going to be a off season of you're not losing some main pieces, but it's going to be interesting to see how they not retool, but who they bring in. And if some of these players can take that next step, like the Keon Coleman's, like it was the injury really that bad with Dalton Kincaid. So you still need some of these younger pieces that want to be part of the core and that they envision being part of this core to take that next step next year. But you're not losing the Diggs, the Davis, and so on and so forth. You're kind of losing those interchangeable pieces, like you mentioned, where they were good for the time, but there might be bigger and better pieces out there that can come in and either do what they were doing or excel better than the pieces that were there this year.
I want to say one last thing too, and I really wanted to avoid saying this because we're recording this Thursday late afternoon, and when people are listening to this, it's already going to be decided one way or the other. But for what it's worth, I really hope Josh Allen wins MVP Thursday night because I truly, truly think, and I'm not even saying this as a homer, I just think he was the MVP of the league. I think Lamar Jackson had a better season, especially when you're throwing numbers around. That's not even debatable. But my definition of MVP and how he did just so much more with less in a way. And I don't want to disparage the Bills roster, the people around him, but he did more with less. And the magic moments that he had, the biggest games and the biggest moments during the regular season. And I know the playoffs don't mean nothing, but he outplayed Lamar Jackson in the playoffs just because he didn't make those critical mistakes, even though Lamar had better numbers. I would also say, to be fair, Patrick Mahomes outplayed Josh Allen in the AFC Championship game because Josh did have turnovers, but he left some throws. He left some plays out there. Patrick Mahomes didn't. So throw the numbers in the garbage. So I want to just keep that real. And I just think Josh Allen deserves MVP. I really, really hope he gets it. I'll be a little bit upset. The silver lining might be if he does win MVP, social media's well, you know what? Social media is going to be insufferable no matter what, because Ravens fans are going to talk so much shit if Lamar's the MVP, and Bills fans are going to do the same exact thing if Josh wins. But he deserves it, man. It's his time. He earned it this year. All the stuff we just spent 10 minutes talking about, how this team was resetting and this was not going to be their year. They end up in the AFC Championship game. Give that guy an MVP. He deserves it. All right, so we kind of hit on it a little bit. Like, how's your approach right now? If you're Brandon Beane, you go in the offseason, you lost to the Chiefs again by a field goal for the second straight year, and this time it was in the AFC Championship game. If you make one or two more plays, or you have maybe one or two more players, maybe even just one more player who makes an impact, you're playing football. Like, you and I are having a Bills-Eagles Super Bowl preview right now. You go into the offseason, cap situation is not great, but it is better than last year by far. And you can do a lot of things to free up money with extensions and things like that. What's your mindset going into this offseason if you're Brandon Beane? Are you still staying in? We'll get some complimentary pieces, and, we're going to continue to try to get better now, but also think of the future? Or are you at a point right now where it's like, hey, man, Josh Allen's going into his 8th year. We got to go do something. We got to try to swing big here, swing for a trade, free agents, whatever it's going to be. Go get a big difference maker. We got to find a way to get over the hump against the Kansas City Chiefs before someone else does it, and it's not us.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it is. And we kind of went over this a couple episodes ago on our show. The Bills have a lot of really good pieces. They don't have very many great pieces. And that ends up being the difference is, you had some players step up. Mac Hollins had a really good AFC Championship game, but he's good, not great. You need great pieces on this team. And whether that is going out and swinging big and go and get a Myles Garrett, whether that's a Max Crosby, bringing in a bigger name like a clear Mac from the defensive line. If he wants to come over here for agency, he's not anywhere near the player he used to be, but can he get more home than Von Miller could, or set the edge better than Rousseau did in the playoffs? So I think that where the franchise is right now, you can't keep relying on, and I'm not saying it's happening next year or 2 or 3 years down the road, but eventually Josh Allen is going to reach that point where he can't keep taking these hits and keep being the same type of player that he is. You can't keep wasting these years, these primetime years of Josh Allen being good, not great, with the talent around him. You have to swing big, whether that is getting a better defensive lineman, whether that is swinging big and going out and getting a wide receiver, moving up in the draft and getting a top wide receiver, though they're not as deep this year in the wide receiver pool. But I think that instead of just adding and dinking dunking little makeshift pieces here, I do think they have to go out and get one or two great pieces. And I don't know how they're going to swing it. I know that they're able, like you mentioned, they're able to adjust the salary caps and the cap space by extending players and restructuring and so on and so forth. But I think they need to add at least one or two great pieces, whether on offense or defense. That's, to me, the only way you're really going to get over Kansas City right now is you need more great pieces than just the good pieces you've been tossing out there.
You play Brandon Beane for a second. I'll be GM for I'll be the GM for the Browns, and I'll be the GM for the Raiders right now. Same offer. I'm telling you now, I will give you Garrett or I'll give you Crosby. Take your pick, if either or neither. And my price is this. I want 2 first and I want a pick swap. I want your second and I'll give you a third. So it's going to cost you 2 first and a second for a third swap. If you're Brandon Bean right now, are you at a place where you're pulling that trigger on a deal, or are you saying, man, I could really love to have one of those guys, but that's just too rich for my blood?
Me as Brandon Bean, if I'm able to look inward and look at my past drafts, I am giving away my picks that I am not nailing for now talent that I know what they are, because I'm nailing the late picks. Like if rounds 4 through 7, I am great at finding that talent. Rounds 1 have not been doing very well. So you take those, I'll take the now talent that I know is great. And yeah, we'll both be happy at the end of the day.
You got to get a guy, and it's an edge guy, okay? 100%. Like if I'm giving up a first or multiple first, it's not for a wide receiver. I don't think a wide receiver it's important, okay? I'm not saying it's not important. I'd like to have Amari Cooper back. But to me, you're like, well, like a lot of people are saying, well, Amari Cooper, let's just say he's 2 years, 28 million. You kind of do a little bit of roster gymnastics or cap gymnastics till you bring him back. Even if his cap it is 10, 12 million, something like that. I'm like, well, how much is he going to play? Because if you got Shakir, Coleman's going to get his share of reps. They like Matt Collins out there. He does things well. He blocks. Are you giving any receiver $10, $12 million a year or more to play 50% of the snaps? He better play 75 to 80% of the snaps if you're going to pay somebody some money. Plus, I think the offense is good enough. I think the offense shot itself in its own foot against the Chiefs too often, whether it was Josh missing a couple plays that were out there. Of course, the Dalton Kincaid drop. And I think Joe Brady had a very lousy game plan for that day. He didn't throw anything at the Chiefs that they hadn't seen before. And Chiefs players were literally saying that. But anyway, I think the offense is good enough right now. Get your guys back. I'll run it back with the offense. I would gladly run it back with the offense. It's the defense. You need, and they wanted it to be Von Miller. And maybe it would have been Von Miller if he doesn't tear his ACL a couple of years ago. You got to take that swing again. You got to do it. You got to go get a Myles Garrett or Crosby or Hendrickson, maybe somebody like that. You need a guy who could get you 11 to 15 sacks. Greg Rousseau's a nice player. Greg Rousseau's been in the NFL for 4 years now. He's not even got a 9 sacks, let alone double-digit sacks. You know what I'm saying? It's like Greg Rousseau is not going to be the guy that makes these money plays. He had an opportunity 2 weeks ago and he did nothing. You got to go get a guy who's going to stop. Will Anderson was a nightmare to Mahomes a couple weeks ago in that divisional round, right? Or yeah, it was the divisional round. You got to go get somebody like him, I think. And if you're Brandon Bean, I'm willing to do almost anything to go do it.
Yeah, like I said, Rousseau, good, not great player. You need a great player on the edge to put this defensive line that they've been trying to rebuild for years over the top. I agree with you. If Von Miller doesn't tear his ACL, he was looking like the player that you signed before that injury. So you can only put so much blame on him. But yeah, they definitely need a Myles Garrett, Henderson, a Max Crosby, somebody on the edge to take that to the next level because they haven't reached it yet.
And it's got to be somebody now, not somebody you get a steal in the draft and 2-3 years from now, he becomes the next Crosby. You go get that guy in the second round or something like that. No, you got to go get that guy right now and then supplement it with a roster that's still, like I said, for the most part, pretty young. You could run that offense back. They're all back. Ty Johnson and Amari Cooper are the prominent free agents that could leave. I'm confident they'll get Ty Johnson back. Cooper remains to be seen. But with the role he had and the percentage of snaps he played, even though he's a great receiver, I think he's replaceable. I think you can go get somebody to give you that output. But you got to have a difference maker on defense. And then the young guys, the really young guys, you got to get that jump next year. Keon Coleman, you talked about him. I expect a lot more from Dalton Kincaid, who hopefully can stay healthy. Cole Bishop, probably going to be a starter next year. Going in the year 2, I expect to see a lot more from him. I'd like to see Dwayne Carter take a jump in year 2 as well. A lot of it's there, dude. It is there. You gotta get the guy who's going to get you over the hump, though. That's the biggest thing for me. Last Bill's thing, kind of a rhetorical question, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I covered this on the show yesterday. I wanted to ask you this. If you're Brandon Bean right now and Greg Rousseau is going into his 5th year, Are you looking to give him? He's only going to be 25 years old next year. That's young still. Are you looking to tie him up knowing that you're going to be paying 22 to maybe 25 million a year? That'll be his average annual salary if you give this guy, a 5-year contract, because this is his 5th-year option coming up now.
No, thank you. Can I sub out a first and put Rousseau in one of those trade offers you offered me before? Can I change my offer? Did we already seal that?
It could happen. It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, he's got a 13.387 million cap it this year because he's got that 5th-year option. Yeah, it's the same thing I said on my show yesterday. I'm like, I can't do it. The playoffs mean too much to me, and I think, and I talked about this yesterday, a couple of years ago, having a show with Ty Dunn, and we just sat down, and his beef was too many people in the media who cover the Bills, and especially fans, put way too much stock in the regular season, not enough in the playoffs. And Ed Oliver redeemed himself on this past. I thought he was fantastic in this championship game. Greg Rizzo fell on his face. He did absolutely nothing, and I'm just not going to blow that off like it's no big deal. I think that's a big deal. Supposed to be your best player. He was your best player on defense all season long, and a no-show in a championship solo. I'm not going to hand that guy big money. Let him go be Tremaine Edmonds. But you got to go out and you got to do something to get, to replace him. And if you do lose Greg Rizzo, you might have to make multiple moves, because I don't think AJ Epinesa is even a solid starter at this point either. Anyway, all right, we'll leave it there with the Bills before we get out of here. Sabres.
We don't have to. We don't.
I'll behave better. I'll behave better than I did yesterday, but I had a lot of beef. I had a lot of things to get off my chest. Tangents, I guess, with the Sabres. And some of them are so obvious. And I'm not the only one, by the way, who's, really pissed off at this team, obviously. But, I know we talked about the Adams presser last time I had you on, the whole palm tree thing and stuff like that. It was just embarrassing. The Terry Bagula, the solution is in the room, and reports surface that he says that. They go out that night and get their asses handed to them by the Montreal Canadiens. We kind of discussed that, but there's two things right now that really get under my skin. The obvious one is the Tage Thompson, what happened to him on Sunday. As a fan, I don't know how you could sit by and not be infuriated with this hockey team. Your best player, your most skilled offensive player anyway, takes a nasty cheap shot to his head, and nothing gets done during the game. We all know that now. And then you listen to the presser, afterwards, and players in the locker room, they didn't see the play. They're up. It's a one goal game, or it was a 2-goal game at the time, actually. They're trying to win the game. Getting the 2 points is what mattered most. Even Lindy Ruff, who was all over the place with his press conference afterwards, kind of says the same thing. They do nothing. Matt Barnaby rips them. Peters and Reve, who don't to be fair, they're always ripping them. But anyway, they rip them, and they also rip Marty Baron. Good on Andrew Peters, by the way, because I'm going to tell you what, Marty Baron sat there post-game, and this pissed me off too, talking about, they did the Sabres handle it the right way. And I kind of remember when Drury got hit and Baron got in a fight with Emery, which is funny because Peters goes, I wish I would have let Emery beat up on him some more. I actually thought that was really funny from Andrew Peters. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. The way they handled it was just complete freaking bullshit. And then that PR stunt the next game against Columbus, where Gilbert starts the game because their tough guy started for Columbus, drops the gloves 3 seconds in. Like, what is that proving? What are we doing here? I want to get your thoughts on that. And I want to get it from a perspective that is kind of like as a fan. How does that sit with you, days later, with the core of this team, the captains, the head coach, or any approach you want to take to it, that you have a team that's that weak, that does nothing? This was almost as bad as when Ryan Miller got ran. That's your goalie. This is not too far behind it. And this team sucks on top of all that.
Yeah, it's just a team that's built on making excuses for themselves. It's just, you sit there as a fan that has probably played sports. Like the majority of the people that like sports have played some type of sports in their entire life. How do you see, even if you didn't see it, how do you see your star player, buddy, somebody that you claim is your brother, laying on the ice face down and his helmet's 10 feet away, and you don't grab anybody? Like, the referee did more to the New Jersey Devils than the Buffalo Sabres did. And it's just, yeah, winning is nice. And I can, at a point, you kind of see like I think it was Chad DeDominicis that said, like, hey, I can see it from the players' perspectives that, you still think that you're involved, that you can think that you can go on a 10 game winning streak because that's the way they're wired. I don't think the Sabres are wired that way, because they're just, they tend to make excuses over and over. And it's just the same talking points that we can't let this happen. This will never happen again. Yet look at the history of the Buffalo Sabres. It has happened on repeat. It might be different players, but it's the same organization. It's just it's just, instead of talking about a 4-game winning streak that, you can slowly build on this. And besides the point of, the Sabres are completely out of it, and that's when they start turning their season around. It's the same thing over and over. But it's just, instead of talking about some nice points of, like, Yuri Kulik looks like a legit player, we're talking about how nobody stands up for this team and in these players. It's just, you have 2 6'11" defenders on the team that are supposed to be the core pieces, and they're just standing around like they have no idea what just happened. It's just, it's embarrassing to the team. It's embarrassing for the city. It's embarrassing for the organization. It's just, every time you think that they're at a new time low, they get lower and lower. And it's just, it's embarrassing. Everybody deserves to be ripping on this team, even though that I don't think the front office or the ownership really cares, because if they did, there'd be some type of movement. It's just, it's embarrassing. And it's just going to be the continued same excuses over and over, because these players, instead of being held accountable, they find ways to just excuse their behavior.
The Sabres this season and the season before that as well, I'm going to put those 2 seasons together. Of all the years that I've been following the Sabres, which is most of my life, which is most of their existence, basically, this is the biggest collection of excuse makers I've ever seen, ever in this organization. There's been worse teams on paper, certainly worse teams than this, but this is the biggest collection of soft excuse makers I've ever seen, whether it was this fight, whether it was last year when no one would take accountability until after Granato got fired. Then all of a sudden guys are in the locker room talking, basically throwing Granato under the bus. That still doesn't sit well with me. And neither does Lindy Ruff. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Look, you can make a reasonable case, and it's fair to say, I didn't see the hit at the moment. I believe some of the players, they didn't see the hit. But the Lindy Ruff that I know on a last place freaking team against a team that fired his ass last, the Devils, the Lindy Ruff that I've known throughout my life of following the Sabres, you can't do nothing. That guy's thrown out of the game. Somebody's going to pay for that shit. Gilbert's on the bench, right? How do you not have the very next shift after Tage is, helped off the ice by a trainer? How do you not have somebody, whoever's going to go after somebody out there on the ice and doing that? You are that concerned when you are buried in the standings about trying to get a win, which, by the way, they got a shorthanded goal scored on them, which I thought was fucking hilarious. I wish they would have had 5 shorthanded goals scored on them that game. But you don't handle it then and there. That's not the Lindy Ruff I know. Kind of leads to another question that I have for you here. It's like the game kind of passing Lindy Ruff by a little bit. Like, are the players kind of tuning him out a little bit? Is he just so demoralized right now that he's like, what the hell did I get myself into when I said I was going to come back and coach his team? I thought my presence, I thought I would be able to get more out of this team. I thought I would make them a grittier team, a team that would care more, a team that's going to stick up for their teammates. Clearly, that's not the case. I don't know, man. What are we even supposed to think about Lindy Ruff at this point? Because he deserves a little bit of blame in the blame game as well for all this shit.
I mean, the press conference was embarrassing. Him saying, hey, this guy's out of the game. We go after somebody else, but we wanted those 2 points. You can do both. Like, if you had faith in your team, you can do both. That you can kill off a penalty, which they had the power play and they still get scored on. But it's how many other teams, like, sure, maybe some players really didn't see it, but there's a giant brand new Jumbotron that shows it all. And it's just, There's the report that came out. I can't remember where it's from, but there's been whispers in the locker room and around the league that they think that Lindy Ruff the game's passed him by and that he's too old. He doesn't understand the game. That's been out there. The rumors in the locker room about, they had the serious talk and, there was talk about removing some A's from players' sweaters. It's just, I'm a sucker. I fell for it in the offseason. I said that I thought Lindy Ruff was going to be one of those coaches that got them over the hump and back into the playoffs. I thought he was a short-term fix just to break that drought. And I don't know if it's the game's passed him by. I don't know if he's being muzzled. I don't know if he's being told what to do, but it's not the same Lindy Ruff that you watch back. Okay, Drury gets hammered and then they go on a full line brawl. Like, where is that type of Lindy Ruff that cared more about 2 points than your own players that you're supposed to love and, stick up for? It's just, I don't know what else to do with this franchise and this organization, because you're sitting here. Kevin Adams has been 5-6 years on the job. Literally nothing has changed. It's just the same stuff. It's just, this whole thing kind of reverts back to, if you want to look at last season, by being soft, they're the same group of players that refused to raise their sticks to the crowd because the crowd was saying fire Don Granato. That's how soft they are, that they let fans chanting something affect them. And it's dwindled all the way down to this. It's just, I don't know what can change at this point, because they've tried new players, they've tried head coaches, and it's the same thing. It's just the one source is at the very tippy top.
I almost want to, I had you on for our Sabres preview episode, and I almost want to make us both look really bad. I almost I don't want to go get some clips from that at some point and replay those just to tell you how stupid that we should delete them. They never existed, so nobody can call us out. One last thing too. So I'll share this. I talked to Mike Harrington and we were talking privately. All right. So, and I know a lot of people, feel about Mike. I like Mike. Mike's always had a respect for me. I really don't give a shit what other people's relationships are with other people. Anyway, here's my point. I was talking to Mike and I was going on my tangents with him about how much I hate this team and yada, yada, yada. And, they're the worst and blah, blah, blah. And he says to me, I want to read you what he says. I could share this because he's not saying anything disparaging about the Sabres or any specific player, that he hasn't said to everybody. But he goes, they're averaging, and this is some fun facts if you want to be optimistic. Mike kind of paints a picture here. They're averaging 3.67 goals since the end of that streak. Since Christmas, they are leading the NHL in goals since Christmas, okay? They went 10-7-1 right after that streak. And if you take off the streak, and the streak, of course, I mean 13 straight games without a win, they're 22-16-2 this season, which is a playoff point. It would be the number one wild card spot. That would be their pace they're playing minus the 13-game streak. Darlene missed 9 of those games in the 13. He pointed that out to me as well. He's talked about how they've played 7 solid games in a row recently, and they've won 4 in a row now. That's all true, but my point is, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to just throw 3 weeks away because they threw their season away in 3 weeks. Yeah, they've won 4 games in a row now. Who cares? They got no pressure on them. They're dead last in the Eastern Conference. Who gives a shit? There's no adversity there. Everybody knows they suck already. So they're playing well now. They're probably playing loose. Who gives a shit at this point? But when it mattered, they let the season get away from them. I'm going to continue to hold them accountable for that. And I'm going to continue to bitch about Kevin Adams still having a job. And I'm going to continue to bitch about Pagula not doing anything about it. What have they done this season? We're 50-some games in, and they've done nothing. What did they got Reimer back from waivers. That's the big fucking move that they've made this entire season, dude. I hear what Mike's saying about all the numbers and what they could be without that streak, but it don't mean nothing because they had that streak and they're dead last in the conference. That's the end. That's what it is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you just said at the end there is exactly it. How much of those numbers can be attributed to they're out of it now, so all the pressure's off. And I think I said this on our Monday show. They're like fake spring to me, where you get all this joy that, hey, winter's over, it's done, the pressure's off, the cold's done, and then, oh yeah, we were fooled. winter's back on. So as soon as they start inching closer, they're going to start feeling more and more pressure. Like, hey, maybe we can get back into this. If they win the next 4 games, they got the long break coming up. But if they win, Nashville on Saturday and then they go on another 3-game run and it's like, hey, maybe we can go on a streak here. They're going to feel more of that pressure and they're going to collapse again. It's the same cycle over and over again. Yes, all the numbers look really good right now, but how much of that is due to the pressure's off? We're in dead last. We're playing with house money right now. It seems like I don't have the numbers in front of me to back it up, but it just seems like that's been the same thing for the last 14 seasons that, hey, pressure's on, we crumble. Pressure's off, we thrive. It's the same thing. It's just the same ending over and over.
They've won 4 in a row. They got 1 game on Saturday at Nashville, and then they get that 2-week break. If by some miracle, okay, let's just say the Sabres go on a streak where they win 10 out of 12. By some miracle, okay? A real miracle, but they do it. And let's say they get to the standings, a point where they're 5 points out. Now you've allowed yourself to start thinking, this team's won 10 out of 12, man. We're within 5 points of the playoffs. We're making, and we've also hopped 3 or 4 teams along the way, and now we're sitting 5 points out. If that were to happen, I would bet my life that they lose 4 of the next 5, and they get blown out in 3 of those 4 losses. I'm telling you right now. In fact, they would go winless in 5. They'd get 1 point out of a possible 10, and they would get blown out in 3 of those games. That's just the makeup of a soft hockey team with no guts and no heart, and that's what it is. There's a couple exceptions here, but that's it. Last thing, too, about a player. Mattias Samuelsson, get whatever you can from him. Fans are never going to I noticed it all week long now on Twitter. All the hate is reserved most for him, and it's deserving. He's the big guy. You got him out there. He's on the ice. Nothing. And now he's on injured reserve. I can't help but be a conspiracy theorist. Like, is his injury really IR worthy? The lower body, whatever the hell. I could say some other things, but I won't. Point being, kind of feel like they don't want his ass getting completely booed out of this arena every time he touches the puck. Last thing for you with the Sabres. 2-week break coming up now. 4 nations face off after this last game on Saturday. Do you see them? And I confirmed this before we did the show. You could still trade. You could still get fired. Do you see anything happening with the Buffalo Sabres that matters over these next 2 weeks where they're not playing? Whether it's the ultimate move where Kevin gets canned, or whether it's a big trade, something along those lines. Do you get a hunch that anything is going to happen during that break?
I'm going to say emphatically no. And somehow, if I'm wrong, I'll be happy, regardless of what it is. Like, it could be the worst trade in history. They did something. I'm at this point, I think I've said it multiple times. I am begging for an Eric Robinson trade, because last year we made fun of it. And, I would kill for it now. It's just, I can't see them doing anything, because they went 13 games straight of not doing anything different and let their season just fall apart when everybody was saying, hey, Kevin Adams' head's on the line. I don't think his job's on the line, because if it was, I could see him making big time moves that would jeopardize the future of this franchise, knowing that, hey, if I don't make a move, I'm done. There's been none of that. So I can't see anything happening in this 2-week break, even if they do get a little bored. It's just, it's the Sabre way. They're not going to do anything.
I'm foolishly holding on hope about Pettersson, even though they traded Miller. So, I mean, it's very unlikely with Vancouver. I think for Kevin Adams to save his job, he's got to take a swing. He's got to take a swing. And the last thing I'll say is, can you just imagine a world where he's in his 5th full season as GM, and this team continues on the same trend that they're at right now? They finished dead last in the East, or second from last in this entire conference. In what world can you possibly justify being an owner of the team and giving a general manager a 6th season when in his 5th, you finished literally at the bottom of the conference? There's no way that you could possibly sell fans on that, especially if your solution is just to say, well, Hellenius is almost ready. Rosine, who always seems great at Rochester, comes up here. I know it was only 1 game, but, he doesn't do shit. Only played 11 minutes or so the other night. That's done. You can't sell on hope and future and, prospects with the Sabres. You got to make a big move if you're Kevin Adams. But maybe I was going to say maybe Bagula doesn't let him. I don't think Bagula even gives a shit at this point. So who the hell knows? Before I let you go, man, got to get in a better mood here. I don't follow the team shamefully. I wish I did. I need to. But just bring everybody up to speed for a minute here on the Buffalo Bandits, because the Bills fall short. The Sabres suck ass. And the Buffalo Bandits, ho-hum, back-to-back defending champions. And oh, by the way, they're 6-0 this season. They're the only team in the league that is 6-0. In fact, they're the only team in the league that's got not just no losses, but everyone else has got at least 2 losses right now in the league. So bring everybody up to speed. What's going on with the Buffalo Bandits? Obviously, they look really good again. And are you surprised that they're at where they're at this season?
I'm not as surprised they're at where they're at. I'm just more surprised at how they're as dominant as they are. It's just they're scoring more than, I think, a goal and a half better than the second team in the league. What they're averaging 16 goals a game. They're averaging less than 10 goals given up per game. They've been dominant. If you haven't jumped on the bandwagon yet, they've only played 1/3 of their season so far. The back half of their schedule is nonstop. They got 12 games in 10 weeks, I believe it is, coming up. This is their last bye this coming week. But I'm not surprised that they're 6-0 after 10 weeks in the NL season. It's just how they've been so dominant. It's just their offense is at another level. There's nobody that can compete with this offense right now. They're deep that one of their practice squad players comes up and doesn't even miss a pinch in his first NLL action. Their defense is one of the best in the league. Their transition game's good. Their 42-year-old Matt Vince is still one of the best goaltenders in the entire league. They're at a point where I said it on the show, there's really only 2 ways that they can not go for a three-peat here, and that could be the only team that really three-peats this year in all sports, is if injuries deteriorate, what happens. That I really think if they stay healthy, I don't see another team in this league being able to beat them. The only thing that would knock them off is the first round of the playoffs. It's just one and done. If they get unlucky or something, even last year, it almost happened. They had a win in overtime in the first round on a big time goal by Josh Byrne in overtime. That can be really the only thing that I can see is just a one and done in the playoffs by a fluke goal, or injuries really do come to bite them, because they've been remotely healthy early on. But this back half of the schedule is going to be very telling what they can do.
Have you had an opportunity to cover a game?
Yeah. Phil's been up in the box once. I've been up in the box once. He was up there during the big time game versus Toronto, where the whole clip went wild, and he was a little nervous because all the big honchos in the NLL were up there. I was like, just be yourself, you're good. But yeah, he's been up there once. I've been up there once.
We're gonna have to coordinate something where I know you'll be there for a game. I'll get a credential and I'm gonna go up there. Maybe we'll cover the game, and then maybe we'll do a little some post game, like a little bonus live stream or something like that from downtown. I do feel ashamed that more people aren't like you and who do not give this team the recognition and the coverage that they deserve. So for that reason alone, folks, if you like the Bandits, or you're not even really into them now, but you really want to start to get into a winner, start off by going to Buffalo Sports Collective. PK and Phil really crushing, man. They do great work. And of course, Bills and Sabres stuff there as well. You can follow PK on Twitter at PK_BSC. The streak continues, where I tell you it's going to be a short podcast. Never is. But I feel like at this point, that coming in, right?
Yeah, we said that before the show. We always say it's going to be short, and never is. It's with us too. It's you lose track of time.
All right, guys. And it's going to do it for this week's episodes. Thank you again, PK. I will be back actually live moments after the Super Bowl is over. Joe from Queens will join me. We will discuss the Super Bowl, talk some Bills, and read some comments in the live chat. All that stuff coming up Sunday night. Talk to you guys then. And watch the goddamn Super Bowl, will you?